when you're further away from your computer, we can't hear you as clearly. I'm not sure if it's just on my end, but I think your microphone maybe is not ideal.
Yeah, okay. I just changed the setting. How is it now?
This is much better. Thank you.
Better. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't want to go all the way through the lecture and nobody could hear me here. So awesome. All right. We'll probably have some more people trickle in here, but I really appreciate everybody taking the time to join the live session today. I know we have people from all over the globe, so exciting to get everybody together here and learn some Web3 data analytics. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We got more people coming in here. All right, yeah, and if there's audio issues, technical issues, anything like that, please speak up. Please send a note. We were hoping to do this through YouTube Live. We had some issues with getting everybody with the right badges within the Discord. So a little bit of a pivot here, last minute, to use this Google Meets. So we might have a more fluid technical process next time. All right, with all that said, let's dive into it. You guys don't have to look at my face anymore. We can look at the presentation. All right, here we go. All right, yeah, if you guys can't see, please let me know, but it should be good to go. Actually, I need to do one. All right. All right, welcome to the Web3 Analytics course. This will be running from November to December. We have 4 scheduled courses, or live lectures, I should say. Couple pending at the end. They won't be required, but what I'm really hoping to do is to offer some just additional webinars, lectures, more opportunities for us to learn and kind of build more of a community here. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Nothing in the books yet, but hopefully we'll have something here. All right, rough agenda today. What we're going to be doing is just I'll give a quick introduction. Why am I up here talking analytics? Then I'll run through the syllabus. Hopefully everybody has read it. So I won't read it line by line, but I will go through some of the high level stuff. We'll talk why learn Web3 analytics. I think that's really important to address right away. I think we all have our own unique reasons on why we're here. And we'll take a look at blockchain explorers, how they're helpful in visualizing sort of the raw transaction data. Then we'll look at data platforms. We're going to focus mainly on Dune and Flipside. There are a lot of platforms out there, but we'll get into that later. Let's focus on these two just to get everybody up and running. But there's a big Web3 data world out there, and we'll open your eyes to that pretty soon here. And then, yeah, I'm really briefly going to touch on how we're going to use SQL to query the blockchain data using these data platforms. This here is going to be sort of the core of our next 2 lectures. So I'm going to give a quick taste here. I won't dive into it too much, but know that this is what the rest of the lecture really is going to be about. All right. A couple people coming in here. So quick introduction on myself. My name is Tim Connard. I got into Web3 about 3 years ago. Previous to that, I worked on 4 different NASA programs, and my most recent called Web2 job, I was an engineering lead on NASA's Lunar Gateway space station. So a lot of fun, interesting work there, but I find Web3 work even more interesting. And that leads to Slice Analytics. So about 2 years ago, started Slice Analytics, which is a custom blockchain analytics and blockchain services. I started that with a couple other partners here, and really I started just like you guys. Had no idea how to analyze data, was trying to absorb as much as I could. What ended up happening is I started performing some analysis for my own research purposes. I shared it on Twitter, and it got a lot of traction. And this was sort of peak bull market 2022, 2021. And my inbox were just flooded with sort of opportunities. And so I saw this as an opportunity to start an analytics business. Um, yeah. Last note on this, I don't want to talk about this too much here. I'll probably highlight more later. And if you guys have more questions on sort of my journey here, we can talk that as well, especially in office hours. But last note is we're always hiring. I think just about every single analyst on our team we met through this community, through Twitter, seeing their work being shared and just being really impressed, and then reaching out, making a friendship connection, and then yeah, ultimately hiring them. So yeah, a lot of opportunities in this space here. All right, and just a note, I'm not going to ask, we're not going to do the go around. What's your favorite this, favorite that? But if you'd like to, I'm always interested in everybody's background here, whether you're a student, whether you're, a male person, whatever your profession is, whatever you're doing right now. If you're comfortable and want to, please share sort of in the comments section here. Hopefully, we can build a little bit more networking opportunity and get people more comfortable here. But no pressure either way. I'm not going to force anyone to speak up here. I'm gonna let Eduardo in. All right. All right. Yeah, let's quick take a look at the syllabus. So in general, what we're going to be focusing on is EVM data, so Ethereum in particular. Uh, the, Probably the biggest advantage here is that if you learn this data, it's one of the most widely used protocols. It has the most builders on it. Uh, and ultimately, if you learn Ethereum data, you can analyze any layer two, you can analyze any EVM layer one. That means you can now start playing around with Polygon data, BSC data, Avalanche data. There's a huge list. This is really where you want to start. There are some more complex protocols like Solana, and I mean, the list goes on. I think those are more of the advanced and next level, but this is a really good spot to start. And this is where I started as well, and where I still spend probably 90% of my analytics time. All right. Yeah, course schedule. Just in general, we'll meet every Tuesday at one more person in here. We'll meet every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I know this doesn't work for everybody, so I appreciate people tuning in from all over the world. But just know that if you are busy, you have a day job, you have to sleep, we will send out the recordings. You'll get everything in your inbox after the course. So no worries if you can't make it, but please try to, just for the sake of being able to ask questions and engage with the class. So today we'll talk just general introduction. I kind of went through the agenda already. Tomorrow we'll dive a little bit more into the data platforms and how we're using SQL to analyze that data. And in the third class, we'll kind of take that next step of how do we perform real world analysis? How do we take these building blocks and perform some queries where we're actually going to find some data that in the real world we'd want to take a look at? And then ultimately, our last class will be path forward. How do we use this data to take that next step within this environment? And I think a lot of really interesting advice will be shared in that meeting, and hopefully we can get some other members of Metrics DAO and within my network to come there at the end and sort of speak about their journey and what worked for them to allow them to get where they wanted to be here. All right, and quickly I'll run through course support. So we do have two TAs. I see we have Suk on. He will be assisting. He already has been doing a fantastic job, so thank you. Then we have one other TA who's wasn't able to attend today, but they'll be around. Again, I talked live lectures, recordings. We can skip that. Office hours, it'll be every Thursday, same time as now. And ultimately, we will be supporting sort of ad hoc through Discord. So if you have questions, anything like that, please write your questions there. Just one thing I'll ask is, yeah, please do be patient. Between all of us, we do have sort of a rotating cycle, sort of our day life as well. So we'll try and answer it as soon as we can. And sort of thoughts here are, if we are not able to get to your question, we'll aggregate all those, and then we'll go through them during the office hours. And I'll also do a write-up, so if you can't attend the office hours, we'll make sure your question's answered. So just be patient, we'll get to them, and your questions help other people. So if you have a question, someone else most likely has that question, please ask it. Don't be shy at all. All right. And course outline in general, this is pretty flexible here. I'm gonna, this is the, I'll call it a skeleton based on student feedback as the course is going. I may adjust some things here, but for the most part, this is what it looks like. All right. All right. Yeah, syllabus overview. Again, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll try and address it in between each section. All right. Why learn Web3? This is why we're all here. I'd say the number one reason of most people I talk to is job opportunities. I, I'm not going to promise that this is a surefire. If you learn Web3 analytics, you're going to have a job. There's still a lot of very hard work required, a lot of practice and hours committed to getting good at this. And then there's the whole other side of it, which is related to being able to market yourself, putting your work out there so other people can see it. And then that coincides with just having really, really good communication skills, which is going to really give you that leverage over someone else. So yeah, and then I would say the second reason most people get into this is performing your own research for investment purposes. This is why I initially got into this. I think it is an insane edge that you have over 99% of the crypto users. Most people do not know how to perform their own research. Everybody says do your own research, but most people don't know how to do this. So if you learn these skills, you will be able to. And I'll be honest, I do this outside of work at least once a week. It is one of my favorite things to do, just to analyze protocols, find edges, and make investments based on this. It gives you the confidence to make decisions here. And I think one also thing I'll note is if you also realize that most of the data shared is, um, well, I'll save that for later. I think we're going to go through that a little bit later. Um, Anyways, the last reason though is really joining a growing community of analysts within a nascent sector. One of my biggest surprises when I started learning Web3 analytics was how small but big of a community there was to join, and everybody's extremely welcoming because everybody's in the same spot. Everybody's trying to learn every day, and it's a very welcoming community. I think Metrics DAO is one of the best out there. But please don't be shy to branch out to Twitter, creating your own community in other areas as well. But Metrics DAO is sort of the place to start, in my opinion. All right, so let's dive into blockchain data. So I'm not going to dive too much into the Ethereum protocol, how it operates on a program scale. What I am going to share is enough information for you to be able to perform blockchain analysis. Sorry for these pauses, guys. I have to manually admit everybody that hops on. All right, so yeah, in general, let's run through an example here. We can use Ethereum or Bitcoin. Someone requests a transaction. That transaction is broadcast to a P2P network consisting of computers known as nodes. One thing I'll note here is you guys will see the word nodes everywhere constantly. All you have to know is think of it as an individual computer all over the world talking to each other to build a consensus. But you'll see nodes everywhere, and that's really what it is. So the P2P network of nodes validates the transaction and the user's status using known algorithms. This is where it depends on the protocol and on how this behaves here. But ultimately, once verified, the transaction is combined with other transactions, create a block of data for the ledger. And a beautiful little diagram here on where kind of blockchain comes from. So this is permanent, unalterable, transaction is complete. So this is a high level. We walked through on maybe how a transaction was completed, but where's the data? What data can we take from this and ultimately analyze? And the raw data is in sort of a computer readable code. It's hex, it's compressed data, it's not human readable. But luckily, we have programs out there that can convert that into somewhat more human readable. And there's stages of this. So the first stage is, hey, let's take that hex data and let's make it a little bit more human readable. That's where blockchain explorers come in. They're absolutely fantastic, but they have their limitations. Really, it just allows you to see a quick visual glimpse at the blockchain. And the main use cases are reading smart contracts. This is something a little bit more advanced, but advanced analysts do know how to read smart contracts, even if they don't know how to write them. It's not too much of a leap to get there, and it's definitely a advanced thing. But moving forward, understanding raw transaction data, Etherscan is great for this. Understanding raw log data, you will learn to love log data as a data analyst. And then ultimately, a little bit more curated from the raw data is understanding flow of assets. So Etherscan is always adding sort of new features and stuff. And let's run through an example here. You guys can get a better idea. If you haven't seen Etherscan, maybe you have. I'm just going to run through everything just so we can get all levels of beginners here. So what we see is a transaction here, and so you guys are aware, this is an ERC20 USDC transfer from one wallet to another. And going from top to the bottom here, what we have is a transaction hash. This is singular for every transaction. This you will use constantly. When you're querying data, analyzing it, this is a sole ID. Think of it as a unique ID to help you look at one specific transaction and all the data related to that. So just know you will use this frequently. It's very valuable, a very valuable output to use. And we see the status, it was successful. We see the block that was included on. Now blocks will have a variable number of transactions included in each block. And on Ethereum, it's about every 15 seconds there's a new block. On this one, if we did take a look at the block, we could see there are 161 transactions included in it. I don't use block data that often, in all honesty, but it's important to understand that, hey, this transaction was executed within this block along with 161 other transactions. So it's important to know where it lives on the blockchain. Right, and here we can see the timestamp that it occurred. And the blockchain uses UTC time. So just know that if you're ever messing with time, it's usually not your local time, it's UTC. All right, this transaction action is not raw data, it's more curated, something Etherscan offers, just showing you, hey, what actually happened with this transaction. And it says, hey, 900 USDC was transferred to this wallet. So just some helpful overview, allow you to understand a transaction a little bit better. Here we have the from address. This is where person who initiated, hey, I want to transfer 900 USDC from my wallet to somebody else's. And the interacted with to, a little bit confusing here. You'd think, oh, this is to who I'm sending it to. Not quite. This is the smart contract that you interacted with. We'll talk logs, which provide a little bit more insight into from and to and why. As an analyst, you'll like logs a lot more. But moving down here, again, this is a little bit more curated data showing you it was transferred from this wallet to that wallet for this much. Value, this is raw data. It's 0 ETH. We actually aren't transferring any ETH here. We're transferring a token called USDC. And transaction fee, we'll get the gas a little bit later, but from a high level, really this transaction fee is how much did it cost to execute this transfer of the token. And what this is the gas price at the time. Here it was 53 Gwei, actually pretty expensive at this time. And if we take the gas price, multiply it by the gas units used, that'll give us our fee that we've used here. So we don't need to know too much detail here. We will go into that later, but just from a high level, important to know. All right, input data. So here, this is how someone initiated the function call. So they called a transfer function and they had an input to address and an input value. And Etherscan is really nice. It's showing us the raw kind of text data here, but if it's simple enough, it can decode it. And here we see the to address. Okay, that's the address it went to. Here's the value. All right, this is the transaction data. And then I'm going to jump over to logs, give you a little bit of insight here. So if I was going to analyze this transfer, I would want to look at the logs. And to give you a little bit more insight here is if you have a transaction initiated, a transaction call for transfer here, let me switch back. It could fail. It could maybe you put in a wrong value and you don't have that much. For some reason, it could fail. Where if it failed, it wouldn't emit an event or a log here. So we wouldn't see this, and we would actually see fail up here, not success. So we might see the transaction attempted to occur, and we might see that on the blockchain, but it never actually transferred because it failed. Where depending on how the smart contract is coded, when a function call for a transfer is successful, it will then emit a event. And this is where we look at logs here. So here, this gives us a really, really neat, from an analyst perspective, aggregation of the data that occurred here. So we see, okay, it was a transfer. They transferred from this address. They transferred it to this address, and this was the value. And this is what we see down here. This is the transfer function. This is the from address. This is the to, and this is the value. And then one last note on value here is there are no decimals in Solidity and smart contract code, so everything has to be written out sort of in a long form. So this wasn't actually 9 million cent. There's 6 decimals for the USDC contract. So if we move this over 6, we see 900. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. That looks like we got a question. Yep, Zoop, thanks for answering that. That is correct. All right, and don't worry if you're not understanding any of this. I'm giving a very rough overview, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, these block explorers are nice to sort of just see this data, but I want to dive into the data. I want to analyze it, and that's when we're going to use the data platform. So this is just giving you a stepping stone of, hey, this is sort of a resource that if you don't know how to analyze, this is what you got to use, and this is kind of what you're stuck with. And you can't look at aggregates of data. You can look at one transaction. But what if I want to look at all the USDC transferred in a day, not just this one transaction? You can't really do that here. That's where the data platforms are going to come in and where your guys' superpowers are going to take off. All right. Yeah, Gas, I think I walked through this, but a reference here for after the course and a little bit more of a breakdown of how this transaction fee is being calculated. All right, I talked about data platforms. So Dune and Flipside are going to be where we're going to focus all of our time. They're free, they're easy to learn, and there's a plethora of learning material created by the communities over the last 3, 4, 5 years. I'm trying to think when each of these projects started, but they've been around a really long time. And so they're excellent tools to get started with. And the fact that they're free, for I would say 98% of what any normal data analyst would want to do, it's perfect. I was talking to some folks in the metrics DAO earlier this week about how many data platforms there are out there now, and I think there are over 60, so there's no shortage. But my recommendation is start with one and be platform agnostic. So different platforms will be better at different things. All right. Cool. Different platforms will be better at different things. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if using the right platform will just save you a lot of time. Now, that doesn't mean using one platform, you won't be able to get to your end goal. It just might take a little bit more time. So don't worry, just start, learn one platform. You'll be able to get everything you want to do done. And then as you expand your skills, branch over to some other ones, figure out what they're better at, what curated data they have that other platforms don't have, and kind of go for there. And it's really just a journey of learning and optimizing your time. All right, so we went from the raw blockchain data to Etherscan. Hey, here's a little bit better of a visual to read the data. Well, then why do we go to data platforms other than aggregating data and everything? Well, they these data platforms have done an extremely well job at creating very, very human readable data in the form of complex models. And just running through an example here, how they ingest this data and through a pipeline. They have a node, it's the raw data, they ingest it, and then they curate it. So they make things very simple to understand from an analysis perspective. They put it in these really nice organized tables. You don't have to be um, building everything yourself. And this will make more sense as we dive into it. But ultimately, they are fantastic tools. I've spent a lot of time just transacting raw data from a node, and it takes, I'll say, days, if not weeks, longer than just using a data platform where they've already processed all this data and created these wonderful tables for you to use. So maybe way down the line, if you want to learn how to process raw on-chain data from a node, it's definitely a skill to learn, but I have never really had to go back to it after learning all these different data platforms. So it's not a necessity as a data analyst to know how to interact directly with the Ethereum blockchain. All right. So let's just take a quicker look at Dune. I'll do the same with Flipside. Moving forward, we'll mostly just focus on one platform so you guys aren't sort of switching back and forth. But I do want to give you guys the opportunity to sort of see how they're different, how they're the same, and why they're so useful. So Dune uses an SQL engine called Dune SQL. It's actually their own custom built engine. It is very similar to Trino SQL. So when I'm trying to understand syntaxes and stuff, I just Google or use ChatGPT, Trino SQL, how do I do this? And it's extremely helpful. All right, and sorry guys, just want to take 1 second. Looks like we want to let someone in. Um, yeah, so Zook or Sandesh, if there's someone I gotta let in, I don't see anybody waiting in the waiting room. But yes, let me know if I need to do something here. You got it. Okay, no worries. Awesome. All right, let's jump back to it. All right, Dune, what we have is the raw data tables. Fantastic. This is an awesome starting point to be able to have all this raw data work from. I would say, it's you have to know how to understand the raw data tables, but it is a little bit more advanced. I'd say intermediate. We will go through it. We will show you. But the beauty of the data platforms is they have things like decoded projects and spells, and these are very neatly organized tables that are extremely human readable that allow you to perform complex analysis without having to dive into the nitty gritty details of the raw data. Um, and then, so the last thing here, Dune recently added this is you can actually upload your own data to Dune. So if you're working on a project, you have some off-chain data, you want to merge it with some on-chain data, it's a fantastic opportunity here to be able to upload it to Dune and then analyze it yourself. Um, yeah, so question here, what SQL did Tim say? Similar to Dune SQL, it's Trino SQL. So since Dune SQL is its own custom engine, when you Google it, you're really not going to find a whole lot of documentation there. So just putting in Trino SQL, it's 98% identical. It should get you everything that you need. All right. Oh, last note on Dune. This will come in handy later on, but a lot of people get turned off from Dune because the queries can take a long time to analyze if you are not optimizing them. I've seen a lot of early analysts get discouraged by Dune because they're waiting 5 minutes for a really simple query to run. Um, but in reality, it's important to understand how their database is structured and how it works. We don't have to go deep in the details, but really all you need to know is that when you're analyzing something, um, we need to put a filter on either block time or block number to allow it to source the data from the tables much more efficiently. It can take from a query that will take 5-10 minutes to run to 5 seconds to run. So this is a special note about how different platforms behave differently, and learning how to use them is sort of a challenge on its own. But just don't get discouraged if you start using Dune and things are taking forever. Oh, why is this? Try this. There's also some really good documentation that I'll link that shows different methods for optimizing Dune queries. That'll lead into flip side, which is, I think, a lot more beginner friendly from making those types of mistakes. So Flipside's engine, it uses Snowflake SQL. It's a very common engine. There's a lot of documentation out there on it. And I actually don't know how their database is structured in the behind the scenes backend. All I know is as a user, queries run really fast, and I don't really have to think too much about how to structure things. Yes, especially if you're working Solana, that is very computational intensive data to analyze. It's too advanced for this course, I'll say. I even struggle on Solana sometimes. Okay, yeah, we got a question. If you are able to speak up or send it in the chat, go for it. All right. Well, if you do, just speak up. All right. Yeah, looking further at Flipside. So again, they have sort of their own structure. It's very similar to Dune. You'll have fact tables, you'll have easy tables, you'll have dim tables. And fact tables are much more of the what I'll call raw data, similar to that Dune had. The easy aggregated models, this is more towards the spells that Dune had. It's very curated, complex models that take all this data from all over the blockchain and aggregate it to a really simple way to query. And maybe to provide an example here is we saw the USDC token, that is an ERC20 token that is transferable. Most coins, I'll say, on the chain are ERC20, which is a standard. And let's say we just want to know, hey, how much volume or how many tokens were different tokens were transferred on a single day. To analyze that from the raw data would be extremely challenging. But the Flipside team and Dune community have built these really nice aggregate models where you can take something that would take several days to build and honestly run it in 3 minutes. It may be another example that you might be more familiar with would be NFTs. Hey, what were the total volume of NFT trades yesterday? That's really complex to do from the raw data, but there's a lot of really good tables built on these platforms that let you do it in minutes. So these tables are a great place to start. It's where we are going to start. It allows you to really show what's capable. And then we'll branch out from there. We'll eventually get to the raw data, which if you're doing more in-depth or non-common protocol analysis, you're going to want to know the data on. Oh, and last thing I missed here, the dim tables. You'll use those every day as well. Prices, labels, decimals, tags, things that are not common in a transaction or event log, but you want to know this data, you can merge these tables. Extremely useful. You will be using these constantly as well. All right, and then I'm going to do sort of a run through. Would buy, sell be in the dim tables? I don't believe so. So I think buy, sell would be in the easy tables. And actually, this is a good opportunity. So the question was, would buy, sell be in the dim tables? Nope, let's look where we could find buy, sell. So a buy, sell, and another term for on blockchain would be a swap. You're swapping one token for another, buying one, selling the other, exchanging it. So if we look where we would find that, let's do token transfers. I think here's a good one where you can see the transfer of ERC20 tokens. Let's see if there is a swaps easy table. DeFi. Okay, easy DEX swaps. Here's a perfect, like really complex, I'm sure, behind the scenes model that you can see all DeFi swaps on chain for a specific token or all tokens. This is where you're going to be working from this table here. And one thing I'm about to get into, and I cannot emphasize enough, is read the documentation. When I first started on a lot of these platforms, there was no documentation and you're just kind of figuring it out yourself. And one of the best things that has kind of grown over the years is they have built fantastic documentation. I mean, this right here, this you just hover over it and you get a great overview of what's included here, and then hey, a hyperlink if you really want to dive deeper into the model that's built. This will save you so much time, and this is where I spend half my time analyzing things, especially when I'm starting out and learning these easy tables, is just kind of learning what's in them, when can I use them, and why are they useful. All right. All right. So now I'm gonna just kind of do a quick live overview of each of these. We can start on Dune. So kind of what I walked through is raw data table here. We only want to look at Ethereum. So here we're able to see we have raw transactions, we have raw logs, kind of a lot here. Let's simplify it by just focusing on Ethereum transactions. In here we can see all the raw data. So it's, yes, very valuable data, but very hard to extract what you're trying to analyze from it. It depends what you're trying to analyze, but most of the time, a lot of the data you're trying to analyze will live in maybe this data section here in like a hex format. And so it's hard to extract that data. So here, right, this is what it looks like. Hey, what does that mean? I don't know. So I will say working with raw data is a more of an intermediate thing. We'll get to it. Let's not worry too much about now. But ultimately, we looked at that. Where do we have it? Let's use this example. We looked at the 900 USDC transfer here. We saw all the raw data. What I'm going to do is just pull that raw data onto Dune. Give you just a quick introduction on how we would use Dune. I'm going to actually add this. And that's not there. All right. And this is just a taste of kind of what the rest of the course is going to be and what I think is the most challenging part of analyzing data. It's not learning the SQL, it's knowing how to use these different data sources and understanding the blockchain and where this data is stored. So I'm going to start with select. So I'm going to select everything, and then we have a from statement here. Where do we want to pull data from? And this is where we're going to use the raw transaction data. So select a star means all of these columns from the Ethereum transaction. Okay, and this is good. If I hit run, this is going to bring every Ethereum transaction that's ever existed on Dune, and it will take a really long time to run. That's a lot of data. So one recommendation early on is when you're learning to analyze blockchain data, always set a limit. This basically just improves the query time. As you get better and you start refining your analysis, you can remove that limit. But just when you're starting out, always have a limit. You don't want to be stuck learning to analyze, but you're waiting 10 minutes for queries to run because you didn't add a limit here. A lot of unnecessary data is what you're pulling. So, all right, but in particular, in this case, we want to look at, so here it just pulled 10 Ethereum transactions. But in our case, we don't, these are just 10 random transactions. We don't really care about this. We want to know this transaction. So how do we find that? Like I was saying earlier, this transaction hash is a key ID that allows you to specifically look at this transaction. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put a where statement. And a where statement is a filter statement. So really what it's saying is, hey, from this table, grab everything, except now let's filter it where, and then we have to put our statement here. So I'm going to say where the hash, that's the transaction hash, is equal to where we took it from the box scan. So this, you'll see on the flip side will run super fast. It's super easy. Hey, this is the one transaction we want to look at. But this is where on Dune, you want to add a filter to improve your query speed. So here I'm going to say, just to help speed it up so you guys aren't watching it run forever, let's do block time greater than or equal to, and you guys don't have to worry about everything here. Really just running through an example. We'll go through in much more details in the next classes. But 2023, let's say 11:01. Okay, and this is UTC time as always. So what I'm doing here is saying, what I'm saying is, hey, select every column from this table, but let's filter it. Let's filter it where the hash is equal to this, and let's filter it where the block time is greater than the first of this month. And this will just speed up the query. And then we're using that limit 10 just to kind of safeguard ourselves from accidentally pulling too much data while we're learning. So let me hit run. Let's see what pulls up. All right, so here it took 8 seconds to run. It had to parse a lot of data, all Ethereum transactions to get this. So one thing I'll say is be patient when analyzing data. You are looking through a lot here. Um, this is where you'll find that sometimes Dune is better at things and sometimes Flipside is better at things. All right, so what do we get? Yeah, really, we're just getting all this raw data, all these different columns on this side that you can see presented out in a nice table. All right, we got from, to, block hash, the data. Um, yeah, so now that you've kind of seen just a quick intro on Dune, I'm gonna do the exact same thing on Flipside. You can see kind of how some platforms are different, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be pretty similar. All right, let's go to, all right. All right, so on Flipside, got network error, refresh this. All right, so I'm in Flipside Studio. I'm again going to comment this out. Hide that so you guys can't see the answers. There we go. Okay, so let's do the same thing on the flip side. Here on the left side, you see the data explorer. This has all the different data. Again, ignore all this. We're going to focus on Ethereum just to get you guys off the ground. And we're going to look at core. So here we look at the DIMMs, we got the easy, and then facts. So if we want to find a similar table to the one we used on Dune, it'd be this fact transactions. This is, in a sense, the raw transaction data. So let's start a query like we did before. Select, and I want all columns from, okay, what table? We're going to take it from this fact transactions. Here we go. And Flipside's really nice interface here. It shows us all the different columns that are going to be populated or that we can choose from, and also which ones we can filter from. So let's do a similar thing here. We're going to put a filter where hash. So here it's called slightly different. It's called transaction hash. I'm doing it's called hash. I'm just gotta keep an eye out for that. And then we are gonna put, let's see, here we go. And this is a syntax difference here, depending on the data type. I think Dune uses variable character. Don't correct me on this. I'd have to look at it, but the data types are different. Here we have to put our hashes in little parentheses here, just to make it work. Otherwise, it won't know how to relate these two data types. Right. And then we're also going to do the, actually, on Dune, or on the flip side, we don't have to do this to improve the query. It's more of a Dune thing. But finally, we're going to do our limit. We're going to do a limit 10 just to safeguard ourselves from making any unnecessary data pulls. All right, let's run this then. All right, so that took about 4 seconds. And as you can see, here, let's flip it this way. It's giving us a lot of the same information of raw transaction data. The gas used. Did we do it side by side? Henry, could you elaborate a little bit on that? Are you saying the flip side windows? Or do you want the Dune and Flipside side by side?
I'm trying to ask that should we perform the things that you're doing side by side to learn better, or first we should watch you and then afterwards do the practice.
Great question. If you feel comfortable, if you feel like you know enough to do it, go for it. This is more of a just a watch me introduction. This is what a lot of the rest of the course is going to be, and give you a taste of the two different platforms, the interface, what we're going to be using. But great question. Definitely, if you feel confident in doing it side by side, go for it.
Cool, thanks.
All right. All right. So yeah, very simple introduction. As you can see, yeah, we used one table here. There are a lot. And this is what a lot of the course is going to be. And I'd recommend getting in here, playing around with both platforms, um, and especially reading the documentation. So what I'm going to do moving forward is assign ungraded homework. I don't like calling it homework. I'll call it practice. Um, it's important to learn the basis of SQL. It is a very simple programming language. If you've never learned any programming, don't worry. I was not a programmer before learning or getting into Web3. I think within maybe 10 hours of learning SQL, you can do 90% of what you need to learn for all blockchain analysis. I think the last 10 or 20% of what I've learned from a SQL standpoint have been really for more advanced things. And that first 80, 90% of what I learned is what is used over and over again. So definitely for this beginner course, I'll send out these links. Definitely, here are just two recommendations, but please, um, yeah, search really just any introduction to SQL course, learn the select statements, from statements, filters, and if you want to get that far, you can get into window functions and aggregations, but don't feel the pressure to learn too much at once. Yes, yes, we are going to make a lot of really, really beautiful charts and Dune and Flipside. So what I showed was just pulling some simple data, but really what at the end of the day as a data analyst, what you're going to be doing is making this data from these ugly tables of how do I take this information to these wonderful charts that show trends and market behavior and retention and really you're converting this raw data that nobody understands other than you into very very digestible visuals that anyone can understand, and that in itself is an art on its own. You want to keep things as simple as possible on your output, and I think that's one skill that some of the best analysts in the space have. You got to understand that your audience who you're marketing to, they're not analysts like you. They're going to look at a chart, try and understand it for a couple seconds, and move on. It's really important that you make those visuals and spend some time on that. But we'll get into that at a later date, and that's usually some people enjoy that more. Other people enjoy the code more, but I think it's a fun way to kind of not just be stuck writing code all the time. Is also learning the visuals and how to make those. All right, back to SQL. Yeah, just I'll send these out. Try and learn just the basics, and that should be enough for our next lecture, where I'm going to do a little bit more of a deep dive, help you guys build the building blocks on these platforms, how you can then start performing your own analysis. Um, yeah, and as far as resources, I'll send out the recording, lecture slides, and resource links within 24 hours. We'll get this recording buttoned up and get it out with everybody. Yeah, okay, I'll make sure to include those links as well to flipsidecrypto.xyz and dune.com. Looks like we've got a question here. Why is querying Solana data such a challenge? It appears that there are similar tables available on Flipside at daylight. You might be right here, actually. Flipside did the heavy lifting for you. I actually have not analyzed Solana data on Flipside myself, but from what I hear, it is where you want to be analyzing it. Yeah, maybe Sandesh can address this better than I can, but I just know it's a lot more data to parse through than, say, an EVM chain. Um, but that's where learning that, hey, maybe Flipside has better models than Dune or one of the other platforms and that a little bit more advanced. I'm not a Solana expert. I'll be honest here on that. EVM is my bread and butter. All right. Yes, and I'll also say if you, I have seen the Solana community really rally behind Flipside. I think there's a really great community there. And most recently, Dune's headmaster created a really, really nice lecture series on using Solana data on Dune. So Solana is picking up some steam. I think the community on Flipside has been around for quite some time, but Dune is picking up steam as well. All right, and yeah, if you're interested, I can share any Solana resources. Just let me know. There's a lot of resources, and one of the goals of this class is to aggregate a lot of this, so that you guys have one kind of source to go to, and you're not left kind of stumbling to find how do I learn more about this? I just got to Google it. Hopefully, we can provide you guys with a lot of links, and if you have a lot of questions, please answer, and we'll add resources there. Um, okay, got a couple more questions coming in. You mean to say Solana has more transactions than ETH? Again, not a sole expert. If anybody else can address this, please do. I think the I would say probably yes, due to the transaction costs and the speed of Solana compared to Ethereum, but I won't get into why use one or the other or any arguments like that. So yeah, sorry, I wish I could answer more about Solana, but hopefully someone in the Discord definitely ask those questions there, and let's use the community here to address a lot of these questions. All right, looks like, yeah, so we do have a couple people interested in Solana data, so awesome. We will find some stuff there. And yes, Zook has a great recommendation here. There are some very, very fantastic Solana analysts to follow, especially on Twitter. Please do that.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm not sure if I was able to get your introduction, but like, after learning this, like, what are the top three things which can add value into your, like, for example, investing, or like, what are the core things that you have achieved from this? And so, like, if you can share a gist around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure when you joined. I'll share maybe a little bit more about my background. Anyone, feel free to hang out, and I don't want to bore you with my story here. So if you got to run or do something, no worries if you got to jump. But I'll just continue babbling here on my end. So in general, we went through like why learn Web3 analytics. Job opportunities is definitely number one reason why I've seen people join. I think uh, there are a lot of job opportunities out there, and the trends follow market trends. So what I would say, apologize for anyone if I'm repeating anything, but when I first joined Web3 and started performing analytics, it was at the beginning of the bull market in 21. There was very high demand for analysts to perform uh, protocol insights, for venture capitalists to get market research on protocols and chains. And it was I don't want to say it was easy to jump, but basically there was a supply and demand shortage, in my opinion, where there weren't that many really good analysts because it was a sort of a nascent sector, and these and Dune and Flipside were still pretty early on. It didn't have as big of a community as it does now, and there was a lot of demand for analytics, so it was a lot easier to get sort of a job. Now, with the market having slowed down a little bit, I would say over the last couple of months, it has been a little bit more difficult. There's less people spending money on analytics. But I, again, don't want to promise anything, but I can almost guarantee you as the market picks up, the demand for analytics will pick up. And we are seeing a little bit of an uptick in the market here. Um, and now is a better time than ever to learn analytics because you'll be ready when the market picks up, where other people will be joining during the bull market, trying to compete for a job, and you'll already have a lot more experience, and you'll have some time while the market is slower to learn. So, yeah, and just job opportunities in general, I think is the biggest one. Performing your own research and investment purposes. That's personally how I got started. I was sort of uh, sucked into the Web3 world and making some investments there while working my day job. And the openness of data that is not available in any other sector really drew me in. You think of Web 2, basically, every company has proprietary data, and that's what creates a moat. You have these healthcare companies, you have these real estate companies, they all have this fantastic data on their customers and trends. They don't share it with anyone else. Nobody else can see it. Nobody else can get an edge on them. They have this data, and that's their edge. And then Web3, everything is open. Every protocol you can analyze and figure out what's going on. You can see trends. It is unlike any other industry for the public to have access to all this data. But the moat is that this data, even though it's available, is very hard to extract. And that's where learning these skills allows you to overcome that moat and create your own edges when you want to make investments. So hopefully that provides one bull. Hopefully that provides enough reason. That's from my perspective what's worked for me on our end. So I started Slice Analytics after I was getting a lot of demand to perform analytics for protocols and venture capitalists. I started Slice Analytics with a few co-founders. Basically, what we do is we help protocols understand their data, venture capitalists sort of track investments and identify future investments as well. And in addition, we help build backend protocol or backend services for new projects. Think of someone like Frentech had to build a backend using blockchain data to show data on their front end. We help protocols like that build that out. Yeah, good question. Yeah, wind bull market. I'm hoping soon. It's been a long bear market here. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, I appreciate everyone kind of bearing with us here on this first call here. I'm definitely getting my feet wet with lecturing. It's my kind of first time doing this. I hope to improve. I'm definitely looking for feedback from everybody, and I'm really hoping to meet a lot of you and kind of have you guys all join the Web3 analytics community. So if we don't have any other questions, looks like I'll share the Twitter. One of us will share the Twitter and Discord. Cool. Next class, well, first office hours next Thursday. We'll kick it off there if you can make it. Bring questions if you have them. If you don't have any questions, still join. I think just listening to other people's questions and watching me, listening to me ramble, hopefully you'll be a sponge and soak up as much information as possible. So cool, everyone. I'll get this recording and all the meeting notes out within 24 hours. Looks like Zook shared the Twitter there, so thank you, Zook. All right, everyone. No more questions. Don't be shy in the Discord. We'll try and answer everything there. And don't forget your homework. All right, we'll see you, everybody. Have a good day or evening.